Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning into today's broadcast. It's the Friday, July 31st, 2026 episode of the Marco Dure Show, the only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Last day of July and the last day of the week. It's another busy Friday as always. But before we head into our weekend, we've got to talk about what's taking place with our economy, keeping you informed on all topics that are necessary. We'll take a look at the economic climate and how it's performing in America. We'll look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, as we always do. We'll also tap into that stock market report today, just to give you a little heads up about what the economy is doing in that regard, and then we'll hit some other relevant news articles as we do. Right out of the gate, though, we have to talk about one of the main pressing articles of today, and that, of course, would be the invasion of roughly 60,000 illegal aliens from Morocco into Ceuta, Spain. This is a little autonomous zone in North Africa that is a part of Spain. Sits right next to the Strait of Gibraltar, and this should really give you a little bit of a precursor as to what will happen next to Europe if something like this should continue. Now, I say this to you because as I was watching this yesterday, I'm watching this invasion. Scores of tens of thousands, I'm told roughly 60,000, that's what I got. Some reports are telling us 50, the excess is 60. I'm sure it's the latter, of course. They always undercut the actual numbers. But now Spain, in response, said on Friday that it was deploying troops to Ceuta just to be able to kind of mitigate what was going on here. The authorities requested assistance from Madrid after the security situation descended into chaos on Thursday, with the border integrity being completely overwhelmed and at least 15 people drowned in an attempt to kind of go around this border into Ceuta. The socialist prime minister, Pedro Sanchez, was due to hold emergency talks as to what should be happening in response to this. You know, when you elect a socialist to your country, and the slow response, while this is happening, and the country allowing this to take place, this is all done by design. The slow response, the lack of pressure to enforce your borders, this allows for more chaos, and that's why Spain is in the situation it is in today. And that's what it all comes down to. Now, you're asking yourself, well, Jerace, what's the big deal? It's just this little enclave in North Africa. Who gives a damn? It's not going to affect the rest of mainland Europe, is it, Jerace? Well, here's the problem. Here's the biggest problem about all this. The implications come into effect because of what is the so-called Schengen agreement. This is allowing for free travel into any area that is a member nation of the EU. This is about 29 different countries that make up this Schengen agreement. And it allows people to move from around the continent with a passport-free ability to move freely through country to country. So in other words, if you can make your way into Spain, which again, Ceuta is a part of Spain and thus a part of the EU, if you can make your way into this enclave, you can move freely throughout Europe. So you can go wherever the hell you want to any of these 29 member states. Now, not every member of Europe is a part of this, but the countries that are not enforcing their borders, think about really any nation except for really, now it's Russia, Poland, maybe Hungary. That's about it. Any other nation just has their doors wide open. That's a big, obviously, problem to this. And that, again, causes chaos. Now, let me tell you something. As a response to this, though, the Spain Ministry of Interior has said that more than 25,000 who have arrived, again, into this tiny little area, have been sent back to Morocco. More than 150 migrants have been removed from Ceuta per minute. That's pretty impressive, especially given the fact that the information that I've seen via video has shown the Spanish authorities just simply standing there watching this take place. Again, we saw this. We saw this under Joe Biden, folks. We saw on our southern border. We saw Border Patrol giving fist bumps to people coming in from the third world, ignoring our immigration policy. Customs and Border Patrol were simply just standing there watching this invasion happen. You even had Texas authorities putting up more barbed wire, trying to enforce a fence system to prevent this from happening. They put up buoys in the Rio Grande to stop this invasion coming into Texas because Texas was becoming overwhelmed. Well, the same thing was happening in Spain yesterday. You saw the Spanish police just simply standing there. Now all of a sudden they're going to do something about this. Again, any country that does not sustain and enforce that they have a border will cease to exist, folks. That's the big takeaway from all of this. And Italy is not pleased about this as well. Giorgia Meloni has woken up to this. She wants to rescind the Schengen agreement. She said she's in favor of closing the Schengen space with Spain. This irregular and uncontrolled immigration represents a danger to their national security. Well, no kidding. No kidding. You have parts of Italy that are, again, mostly foreign-born now. This takes place, again, all throughout Europe. It's not just indicative to Italy. While Meloni is trying to work on deportation, she's kind of dragging her feet on this one. But it's happening all over, folks. It's happening in France. It's happening in Spain. It's happening in Italy, Germany, Sweden, the UK, the Netherlands. All these different countries that are not securing their borders, that have this welcome to everybody in the world policy, are really essentially committing suicide in slow motion. That's what it comes down to. We see the birth rate of the native population all throughout Europe is really indicative as to what takes place right here in the United States. You're not above that 2.1%, or per person, I should say, to have children. That's what has to happen. You need to have that 2.1 number in order to create the existing demographic to stay the same. That's not happening anymore. The West in itself is not reproducing as what it should, and that's why we are dying slowly. Then you have the importation of people from the third world that have a birth rate of roughly, I want to say it's 5.8 on average, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. What do you think Europe's going to look like in 10, 15, 20 years? What do you think is going to happen then? Same thing goes with the United States. It's all by design, folks. Never forget that. Never forget that. So we're seeing this chaos take place throughout Europe. Again, I'm not shocked about any of this. And really what they're doing, they're taking advantage of this Supreme Court ruling inside Spain, which again is ridiculous. And the ruling says that people intercepted en route to Ceuta cannot be returned to Morocco. So all you have to do is make your way into this tiny little enclave in the Mediterranean. Once you get there, then you can make your way across to mainland Europe. And then once you're there, you're there. So much as long as it's a part of this 29 member states that agrees to this Schengen, agreement, if you want to call it that, this free travel once you're on the soil of any of these member states that allows this free travel, no passport, no problem, no nothing. Now it's even got Macron, the moron himself, to tighten up its border with Spain as well. And Italy right now is miffed as well. Meloni has come out and said that. It's amazing to me. It's amazing that we have these lax policies that allow for this illegal migration of these third worlders, and this invasion into Europe. That's what it is. This is an invasion. You're watching an invasion in real time. We saw that again on our southern border. This has got to stop. If the West wants to survive, and again, I don't know that they do, but if the West would like to survive, you have got to stop this, and you have to deport people that do not belong here. That's the end result of this, if they want to survive. If they don't want to survive, they'll continue doing what they want to do. Seems the UK is content with that. They brought in this new schmuck. I don't even know his name. I don't even care. He's already appointing foreigners to his cabinet. This dunce that no one elected to, by the way. But this is when you have people that run your government that do not care about the existing civilization, the traditions, the customs, you slowly commit suicide as a people. And again, I'd have to say that's a very sad thing. But notice nobody is invading any of these countries of which these people come from. Isn't that interesting? I've always thought that was interesting. There's no reverse invasion. Right, there's no Europeans running to Morocco or sub-Saharan Africa or any of these other parts of Asia or South America, right? They're only coming to these white European nations. It's all by design, folks. I tell it to you how it is. That's the way it works. But this is exactly what they want. This is how they take down these free nations, or at least they were once free, that are taken over by these dunces that have these laid-back policies on immigration that subjugate the existing population. And then, of course, you have chaos, and then you have the change of laws, you have the enforcement of new laws, certainly not for them, but for the people itself. That's what it's all about. It's all about a takedown. Again, think about the Roman Empire. Why did the Roman Empire fall? Because what have I told you before? They stopped producing young Romans. Well, we're doing that in the United States right now. We're not producing young Americans. That's what it's all about. Change the culture, bring in different people that don't share any of the same values, and again, you can really get what you want if you're a leader, which is more power for yourself. That's what it's all about, in a nutshell. So I wanted to bring that up with you first. That's obviously very pressing in Europe right now. And again, no one in sight, folks. At least Spain had the decency, after this invasion, to come in and say, we're going to try to do something about this after the fact. Again, this is what happens when you have these do-nothing socialist politicians that drag their feet to everything. And Sanchez is no different than a Joe Biden. Same ethos, same mentality, same lack of honor for your people, which is what any government leader should do. Honor your people, honor your community, honor your sovereignty. Doesn't happen. All right, folks, let's jump over to economics today. Let's look at what's going on this front. I wanted to bring this up earlier in this week, and I kept never getting the time to go through it, so I made sure that this is up front and center today. This comes from ABC News. This came out last week, and again, I didn't get through it. I'm sorry, but we'll go through it today. This comes out as a big positive to you, but the reality is something much different, unfortunately. So let me go through this with you right now. It says U.S. filings for unemployment aid fell to 187,000 last week. So it'd be the previous week, of course, the fewest since 1969. Now, on the front of that sounds great, right? We've never had numbers so low. The applications for joblessness benefits tumbled to the lowest level since 1969. My God, ladies and gentlemen, the golden age is upon us. Yes? Right? Think again. Now, while we can look at this and say that the July 18 numbers declined by 22,000 to 187,000, according to the Labor Department, this is, again, the fewest numbers for any jobless week claims since September 6, 1969. Sounds nice. It fell well below the 215,000 new application forecast by analysts. So when we look at this, are we saying, okay, we must be hiring more people? That must be the case, right? Well, let me put it to you in a different perspective. The unemployment rate, which again, this is what this is looking at right now, it only shows the people that are actually searching for work. The people that have dropped out of the labor force altogether are not included in this. This is the problem with all of this. And to, again, corroborate my assumption that this is not something that's necessarily that positive, I found an article in CNBC. And this came out in June of this year. And it says here that the job seekers are giving up. Labor force participation rate falls to the lowest level in 50 years. What have I been telling you? I said, stop just looking at the unemployment rate. We want a low unemployment rate. Don't misunderstand me. But we want a high labor force participation rate. This is part of the problem. We want the number to be anywhere between 63 to 67% is usually a healthy number. Anything more than that would obviously be great. But this is all the able-bodied people that could be working, that should be working, that are included in this. So while we can look at, because we have the jobless level and the unemployment rate going to 4.2%, again, the lowest in a year. When Trump took over, it was 4%. It reached 4.6% at some point in 2025. When you look at the working age population, either employed or, again, are looking for a job, that number slid to 61.5%. This is the lowest it's been since March of 2021. Remind me, folks, what happened in March of 2021? Oh, yeah, we were in the middle of COVID. We're in the middle of government lockdowns, right? We had, as we talked about with the Fauci this week, right? The Faucinator, right? Good old Anthony the Fraud Fauci. Mr. Diary. Closing this, shutting down that, don't go to school, wear your mask, all that good stuff, right? That you were forced to put up with. Well, not all of us put up with the nonsense. Not all of us bought into it, but again, most people did, and that's what was happening at the time. You saw lots of blue states shutting down their economy, shutting down the commerce, and we're looking at levels as low as that right now. Now, I'll give you the credit that 2020 probably had the biggest result back when we shut everything down right away. 2 weeks to slow the spread. So excluding the COVID-era job market, it was the lowest labor force participation rate in exactly 50 years. That means the people that should be working are working. We are now at that low level right now. We're down to that level. Given, again, that 2 weeks to slow the spread garbage where we had unemployment to an extremely low level. But the decline in the labor force marks a massive exodus driven by multiple factors we could look at. Ladies and gentlemen, we see the exporting of jobs. We see AI coming in, another big problem. We're seeing companies react to that. We're furloughing people. We're laying people off. That is a truism. That is what's happening right now. So while we could say, well, the unemployment rate's falling, good, I'm glad, but what about the people that have completely just dropped out of the market? A lot of these Gen Zers, if you will, that are living with mom and dad, they're not doing anything, they're not looking for work. They have this massive student loan debt that they went to college for, thinking they were going to have a great job waiting for them. A lot of them have been taking some menial jobs, some entry-level jobs into the field of which they want to be a part of. All this is part of the problem. The quitting of the search for employment, especially for younger Americans. This is a major, major problem. But look at this. It says in June alone, the labor force, a measure, again, of those either employed or not employed and are looking for work, plummeted by 720,000. Yeah, there you go. That's why that's bringing that number down. Similarly, the roles of those counted are not in the labor force. So again, it adds in the unemployment rate as well into this. But a group that includes the unemployed and are not looking for work jumped by 832,000. Yeah, that is a major, major problem, folks. So we're looking at some major numbers of people that should be working that are not working. Is this a positive? Obviously not. This is a major problem. So when Trump comes out and tells us a couple of weeks ago, we're the hottest country on earth, we've never been stronger, this is the golden age, I asked myself the question, is it? Is it the golden age? Is this really what we're considering to be the golden age? Obviously, we cannot come to the conclusion that this is the best economy we've ever had, folks. Not by a long shot. Not by a long shot. Now, on a year-over-year basis, the labor force is down by over 1 million. Take a look at that. While the level of employed has also fallen by 1.06 million, and ranks of the unemployed have risen by 40,000. So we see how these numbers can be easily tweaked just by what you look at. So while we could look at a week and say, hey, look, the unemployment benefits, people applying for them are down. Okay, good. But where are we looking to? What else do we have as an example that the economy is doing well? The employment to population ratio slipped to 59% in June of this year. Again, the lowest has been since October of 2021. So again, we go back. What was happening at the time? That was COVID, right? We were in the heart of COVID at the time. March 2020 to the end of 2022 was when the bulk of this was really kicking place, right? This is when it was at its highest levels. So when we look at this stuff and we say, is the economy well? Are things going well? We have to say to ourselves, it's not going well. It's not going well, folks. And again, most of the people that are affected by this are the millennials and the Gen Zers, of course. So I wish, again, I had something better for you on this front, folks, but this is the reality. This is what we have to look at. This is where we have to say, are things going as they should if we were in a strong economy? The answer to that is no. And the biggest plunge came from those ages 25 to 54. So we're looking at the millennials, the Gen X's, of course, but also the Gen Zers right now. And they are becoming a big voting group. They are vocal about what they want. And, I say that to you because these people vote. These are the young adults that are voting now. They're getting into the workforce, or at least they should be. And they're fed up about what's going on. These are the people that President Trump needs to target because many of them are his voters. But a lot of them are pushing over to socialism. Again, something we do not want to see. Now, I say this to you because we look at the economy as of right now. This comes out of Fox Business. Again, another article that's really shining light that the economy is not doing what it should right now. The Trump administration is not delivering on its promises. Now, U.S. economic growth slowed to an unexpected result in the second quarter to an annualized rate of 1.5%. Again, this is the 3-month period, including April, May, June. The figure was well below the 2.1% growth estimated by economists, and it comes after the U.S. economy grew at a rate of roughly 2.1% in the first quarter of 2026. So we were expecting to keep GDP the same, gross domestic product. We did not. Again, this is coming right from the government too, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see if there's a revision later on, hopefully. God knows it would be lower. But last year, just to retort where we were last year at this time, the U.S. economy grew at an annualized rate of 4.4%. In other words, very good. Very good. Again, we were not in this war right now with Iran. We're putting all of our resources over there. In the third quarter, we saw a 0.5% growth in quarter four, which again contributed to a rate growth of about 2.1% for 2025 as a whole. So we're much further away from that 3% GDP growth, which we would like to see. But it wasn't happening, folks. We got to get GDP up. And how do we do that? What have I been telling you? We have to start investing inside the United States. That's first and foremost. If we do not start bringing back the manufacturing, if we don't start bringing jobs, good paying jobs, that many Americans can apply for, can get. Again, stop bringing the H-1B visa holders. Stop that. That's, again, a failing policy. Again, many people look at that, too, and say, what the hell are we doing with this? It's got to stop. And if it doesn't stop, we have people in this country that are going to college. They're expecting a good-paying job, whether it be in programming, AI, whatever it may be, right? Engineering, you name it. They're getting into these fields. They're applying for jobs, and no one's even calling them back. And they're saying, what the hell did I spend $200,000 on then? I went to school. Maybe I got a master's, too, on top of it. I want to be ready to go. I'm ready to work. I'm ready to get involved. You get out, you apply for jobs, and no one's even returning their calls. This is, again, it's demoralizing to a T. I've been there before. I understand what that's like. Again, as a millennial, I understand what you could feel when you're going through this. But we have to start bringing these jobs back. There's no other way around that. You have to start bringing good jobs back. You have to start growing the economy. And the way you do that is by bringing back the manufacturing. Now, I understand not everyone wants to work a factory job, but when you bring back those jobs, there are also other technical jobs that go along with it that will help build America, helps bring up GDP. It's a win-win for everybody. If we produce here, we have those products here. We don't have to import them from China, from Mexico, from Canada, from the EU, from Asia. We don't have to do that. We're not reliant on that. You have good jobs right here. You build in your own communities that have been so hollowed out since, going back, really, if we look at it from the 1960s in this country. But this is all part of the problem. We're not doing that. And then, of course, 1990s came in. We had NAFTA. We had other trade agreements that came in. We have the outsourcing of jobs to China, these good-paying jobs. And we said we just don't need them, right? Someone else will work those jobs. We don't want them. We don't need them. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, we do. We need to produce right here in the United States. Again, I'm a big proponent of that. I believe we need to bring back the manufacturing to the United States in any way that we can. So whether that be dropping the corporate tax rate, lowering regulations, what do we need to do this? And by the way, let's bring back the manufacturing, the refining of rare earth minerals to this country. Because right now, China is not giving us the rare earths we need for our military. A big problem, folks. How are we going to operate as our military doesn't have the proper raw materials that go into that, the proper industrials that we need? We need this. We need to have this for our modern technology. We don't have that. China's saying they will not refine for various rare earths that go into our manufacturing for our military here in the United States. Big problem. We need to stop being reliant. We need Congress to act on this. We're trying to work with Brazil right now to get them. But the problem is we're slowing it down. We're not working on it. And I say to myself, we used to be the leader in rare earths back in the 70s and 80s. What the hell happened? Did we give this up too? Obviously we did. Now China's leading the world in refining rare earths. Over 90% of all the rare earths come out of China. So now we're beholden to China. China's a partner with Iran. We're bombing Iran right now. So China could say, okay, well, listen, these 18 rare earths in this typical munition for this missile, we're not going to give these to you anymore. Oh, those 4 that you need for those others. Oh, yeah. By the way, we're going to stop giving them to you for military purposes. We have got to get our act together, ladies and gentlemen. We have to get our act together. This is the writing on the wall. How can we have a military that does not have the necessary rare earths in them to function? We just won't have them. And that in itself is a much, much bigger problem. Just wanted to share that with you. All right, let's move on, ladies and gentlemen. Kevin Warsh has made the headlines as well. Right, let's take a look at what's going on at the Fed. And it looks like they just froze the interest rates yet again. Here's how Wednesday's meeting went after the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage rate climbed to its highest level in nearly a year this week. Driven again by renewed energy price hikes following the collapse of the U.S.-Iran ceasefire. Again, I told you before, folks, the longer this war goes on, the weaker the economy will be. I try to tell you this, folks. Seldom people listen. So now we have the central bank, which was widely expected to leave its benchmark interest rates in the 3.5% to 3.75% range, even as the three of the Federal Reserve's 12 policymakers voted for a hike. President Trump has demanded for quite some time. He was hounding Jerome Powell for this to slash the rates. Well, again, Kevin Warsh, who, by the way, promised President Trump he would lower the rates, has now, again, put a pause on the rate hikes because he doesn't want to upset President Trump. This is the problem. And again, President Trump said of Warsh, he said, I know he'd love to see the lower interest rates, but he's got a board. It's a political board, and they want to keep the rates up. But we fight through rates. Well, again, folks, ladies and gentlemen, if you have rising inflation, which Kevin Warsh is dealing with right now, the only way to combat that is to raise interest rates. So while Jerome Powell did the exact same thing, he waited to raise the rates. That prolonged, obviously, the reduction in inflation in this country. You add the war in this. You add the oil spike problems. We have a supply chain issue. What we see now is the inflation is going up, but now we need to see the interest rates react. So in other words, if you have 4.2% inflation, let's just throw that number out. That was one of the later numbers. You have to have 5.2% interest rates to combat that 4.2% inflation. That's how the economy works. So is he going to lower the rates? He could. That's just going to prolong the inflation. And we're not going to do anything to combat that. And that's another major, major problem. So what will Warsh do? That's the big question. How will the Fed's decision impact, again, the mortgage rate? It says here that the Federal Reserve does not directly set the mortgage rates, but its decision to play a significant role in the percentages for the lenders offer what would be the future homeowners. We look at both the 15 and the 30-year fixed-rate mortgages now follow the lead of a long-term Treasury yields. Well, which are, again, directly influenced by what the Fed does, right? Absolutely. Now, let's take a look at the Treasury yields, folks, because this, again, is another major indicator that things are not going well. This, again, comes from CNBC. It says here that the 30-year Treasury yield hits its highest level since 2007. after the Fed keeps rates unchanged. Yep. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's go back in time. Let's use, I don't know, 2008 for an example here. What happened in 2008? Oh, that's right. We went into one of the greatest recessions we've seen in quite some time. Are we on that path again? Absolutely. I told you there's going to be a great recession that's coming that'll make 2007, 2008 look like a walk in the park. What we're seeing right now with our bond market is very troubling. We had the 10-year bond yield earlier this week hit 4.7%. Folks, when you hit 5% in the bond market, you're in trouble. That means you cannot service the debt. So in other words, we can't pay back what we borrow. So again, we add more and more and more to our national debt, which again is $40 trillion, folks. Again, borrow, borrow, borrow. No good here. But the 30-year Treasury bond yield jumped to 10.5 basis points to 5.201%. Yep, it also hit the highest level since July 2007, which was 5.244%. The benchmark 10-year note yield also climbed nearly 7 basis points to 4.671% this year. It was 4.7 earlier this week. But we're in a lot of trouble, folks. The bond market does not lie to us. And when we see the rates rising in that category, again, we're not going to be able to service that debt. And that leads to major, major problems, certainly with our financials. You have people dropping out of the bond market because, again, people don't want to buy up that debt anymore. China being one of them. Another major, major problem. Okay, folks, let's, again, I wish I had more better news to tell you. It seems as though we're not going to be hitting our target 2% inflation rate anytime soon. We see the consumer sentiments also not good with the economy, the way things are going. So Kevin Warsh, President Trump, they got a lot of work on their hands. Lots and lots of work on their hands. All right, folks, let's jump into the stock market about halfway through the program. Let's look here at the Dow Jones to start things off today. Trading at $52,459.31, up in the green at 0.48%. S&P 500 up 0.47% as well, trading at $7,472.60 a share. And the NASDAQ trading at $25,277.49 a share, up a 0.62%. Everything's in the green today, folks, so everything is good, right? What did I just tell you? Everything is not good. Everything is not great. Again, we're seeing a lot of the sentiments about the interest rates now being a factor in all this. We're seeing the geopolitical tensions, the recent airstrikes resuming in the Middle East, again having a big effect on what's going on with oil, as we'll see momentarily. And that is affecting the energy stocks and the broader market sentiment in the United States. We're also seeing a lot of risk-off behavior, which is evident right now in the investors going on. We're seeing decline in a lot of the cryptocurrencies right now. The tech stocks are reflecting the caution among investors, which rely heavily on our top marginal stocks. So that's why you're seeing things shift today. Let's jump into those tech stocks. Let's look at Amazon first. We can see that Amazon is trading at $270.83 a share, up 15%. Very nice return, ladies and gentlemen. When we look at Apple, we see $301.26 per share, down 9.65% today. Moving over to NVIDIA, again, one of those stocks that a lot of people are bullish on, up 1.57% today at $198.11 per share. Advanced Micro Devices is trading at $489.04 a share, up barely a percentage point at 0.75% today. And looking over at Microsoft, we have $462.63 per share today, trading at 2.56%. Meta, good old Mark Zuckerberg, trading at $549.63 per share, up 1.97% today. Looking over at the fellows over at Alphabet, up 5.93%, not doing too bad, trading at $353.43 per share today. Dell Technologies, right? Dell Technologies, barely up at 0.56% today, trading at $407.07 a share. Looking over at Micron, one of the ones in the red today, down 4.40% today, trading at $836.18 a share. Broadcom also barely up today, 0.19%, trading at $388.58 a share. And Tesla, good old Elon Musk. How are we doing today? $310.06 a share, up 0.39%. And I threw a new one in here today just to throw a little curveball into you guys today. Oracle is trading at $128.44 a share, up 0.69%. I'm sure good old, what's his name that runs it? Larry Ellison, right? He's just buying everything up right now. I'm sure he's very, very happy about all that. Let's take a look at these stocks, though, ladies and gentlemen. We've got some AI infrastructure spending that is still very dominant, is the big growth driver for a lot of these tech stocks. Again, I told you this is a bubble. So while it's doing great right now, will it be great by the end of the year? Probably not. We see a lot of these hyperscalers investing heavily in these data centers and these chips that go in with this. So no shock in there. However, the valuation discipline is becoming much more important with a lot of these macro risks. We look at the regulations, the inflation, the interest rates. All these things are going to be weighing in on a lot of these tech stocks, ladies and gentlemen, and how these stocks will grow as time goes on. But make no mistake about it, I told you this before, while we're seeing things looking good now, we're seeing stock market highs, again, with the top marginal stocks, the bubble is getting bigger. The bullishness is getting bigger. So in other words, the bust is coming soon. Never forget I've said this to you. The bust is coming soon. We're going to have an AI bust at some point in 2026. We're also going to be seeing a housing bust. We see a lot. Again, folks, don't just take my word for it. Go look at any downtown. You see a lot of these buildings, they're vacated, they're empty, they're not being utilized. At some point, someone's got to default on that. So we have two things that are kind of mirroring one another, the AI bubble bust and the housing bubble bust, which is going to be detrimental to the banking system. It's going to create a lot of problems in the near future, which I estimate would mean that, again, we would see our precious metals going up. But one more thing I want to talk about before we go into it is the cryptocurrencies. We have Bitcoin down 3.03% today, trading at $62,801.33 a share. Ether is trading at $1,861.98 a share, again down 3.17%. So the cryptocurrencies, again, are reflecting what's going on in the market today. All right, folks, let's move on to precious metals. Gold today trading at $4,100.20 a share, down 1.45% today. Silver is trading at $57.67 a share, down 2.28%. Platinum is trading at $1,654.80 a share, down 0.35%. And palladium trading at $1,280.50 a share, down 2.12%. So overall, we have the precious metals market a little bit mixed this week. Gold was slightly weaker. We have silver gaining some relative strength, of course. Again, it's used in other things, other industrials. Platinum and palladium remaining steady, of course. So, while we see things a little bit in the red today, they're pretty much where they were as of last week. I know gold is up a little bit higher than it was last week, or at least earlier in this week. So investors are kind of monitoring, again, the interest rate expectations. How will the dollar do if the interest rates go up? We look at the industrial demand, again, thinking something like silver, for instance. That's used as a precious metal, but also used in other commodities. And also the supply factors. They're looking at those closely as well. So that's why we see the precious metals performing as they are doing today. And now for the big one, the oil. Yep, let's take a look at that today. We got West Texas Intermediate trading at $84.75, up 1.39% today. Brent crude just under $90 at $89.98 a share, up 1.07% today. Let's shift things over to the Middle East. Murbain crude, ladies and gentlemen, trading at $76.31 per share, up 3.51% today. Dubai crude, yep, again, everything in that region, folks, it's taking a hit right now. We've got Dubai crude trading at $72.86 per barrel today, up 0.57%. Western Canadian Select right now, ladies and gentlemen, trading at, let's see, $58.26 per barrel, up 2.9% today. And Ural's crude coming out of Russia, who has been recently sanctioned thanks to Lindsey Graham. Oh, yes, you got to love the Lindsey Grahams of the world, don't you? Oh, yeah. Right when we're in an oil shock supply chain issue, Lindsey Graham wants to put more sanctions on Russia. Oh, yeah. After he goes and sees his buddy Zelensky. Ural's crude is trading around $84.56 per barrel today. Yeah, folks, it's up. Oh, I'm sorry. It's actually down a little bit. It was up earlier. Down 0.97%. Yep. There we go, folks. There we go. Now, again, why do we see oil as it is, folks? We see OPEC output cuts as well. We see the strong Asian demand, ladies and gentlemen, pushing Brent crude and Burbain much higher today. The U.S. shale output and the refinery utilization are also influencing West Texas Intermediate, Western Canadian Select. One thing I want to make clear to you. In the United States, folks, 70% of all the oil refineries all throughout the United States are built to utilize and to refine the heavy crude oil. This does not come out of the United States. Now, while we're drill baby drilling, which again I'm all for, by the way, we only produce sour crude in the United States. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, sweet crude. The sour crude comes from abroad. So it can come from Mexico, it can come from Canada, it can come from Venezuela, it comes from the Middle East, it comes from Russia. That's where this heavy sour crude comes from. And when we have sanctions and supply chain constraints, keeping again Urals, Dubai, Omani crude lower, we still don't have that supply coming into the United States. That's the problem. We're not getting the demand. We're not getting the supply that we need for the demand in the U.S. This creates the diesel. This creates the jet fuel, and this creates a major, major problem. Should we not be getting it? So while we talk about the closure of the Strait of Hormuz being a big problem, absolutely, again to the entire world, we have to understand something. We are not getting that. So that's why you're seeing the price of diesel going up. You're seeing the price of your airline flights. They're going to be going up. So again, right now it's summer, right? We're in the heart of summer right now. You want to travel in August, before Labor Day. You want to go someplace quick. Well, those price, either that plane is not going to move or those prices are going to continue to go up. And also, ladies and gentlemen, by default, how does any commodity get to market? It has to go by diesel, by the tractor trailers on the roads. That's how it has to operate that way. So if the cost for the truck drivers goes up, that means the cost for you at the store has to go up, because the cost for the retailers also has to go up as well. That's just the way it works, folks. That's just basic economics 101. Has to go up. So if you see the price of diesel going up and you say, well, thank God I don't drive a big rig. Well, ladies and gentlemen, everything you have, from that diesel getting put in the ground at the gas station to anything you buy off the shelf, groceries, a television, anything, it's all going to go up. That's the end result of that. Just thought I'd share that with you. And if we have a supply chain shock where we're not pulling from the strategic petroleum reserves, or we're just relying on what we get in from our imports, which we have to get because we don't produce it anywhere in the United States, then we have bigger problems as well. We can only drop down the SPRs so much. What happens when we don't have anything? What happens when we have that 270 million barrel restriction? We can't go any lower than that. What happens then? We're in that moment. We're approaching that moment rapidly because this war continues to go on. The Strait of Hormuz continues to stay shut down. Again, for anyone going to Europe or to the United States, or to the West, I should say. Big problems ahead, folks. Big problems ahead. Don't say I didn't warn you, as I always do. All right, let's move on, folks. I want to take us into Mamdani quick. I was going to go over this one yesterday, too. I ran out of time, as I sometimes do. This one's a kicker. This comes out of the New York Post. It says Mamdani publishes names and addresses of all New York City property owners who could be hit with a pied-à-terre tax. This is French for small apartments. Now, why he's so privy to the French all of a sudden is because he has a way to tax people, right? That's good old Mamdani. The city's Department of Finance uploaded a comprehensive list which purports to cover all the unoccupied, non-primary residents right here in the 5 boroughs of New York City, the Big Orange itself, anything north of $1 million. And what he decided to do was put the full names and addresses of every single property owner. Now, why you would do something like this is, again, beyond stupid. It's reckless, of course. And again, it violates your Fourth Amendment. Your privacy. Now your name is posted so people can all see. Names and addresses? Really? Is that smart, do you think, ladies and gentlemen? I don't think so. But what's Mamdani trying to do? What is he trying to do with all this? What is the schmuck trying to do now? He took on Thursday to say that the best city in the world, which is dubious, I think, at best right now, deserves the best parks, libraries, and schools in the world. That's only possible when we all pay our fair share. We. Him? Does he pay his fair share? Do his parents, who are uber wealthy, do they pay their fair share? Yeah. Think about that one for a second. The socialist darling has long touted the policy enacted by Governor Kathy Hochul, another ignoramus, and Albany Democrats to tax second homes in the city. Again, they do this in order because the people that have money, ladies and gentlemen, that can get out of New York City are getting the hell out of New York City. No shock there. No shock at all. I love how he makes it $1 million, though. That's amazing to me. Now, critics have warned that it will cause property values to plummet, probably. Supply and demand, folks. If no one's buying those very wealthy apartments, what's going to happen is that the market drops out. Now, Mamdani is threatening to raise the city property taxes by a staggering 9.5% in February unless he was allowed to, quote-unquote, tax the rich. That's his only go-to. Him and Bernie Sanders, Robert Reich, right? The dunces of the world that have never produced anything in their entire lives except more rhetoric against capitalism, want to have $12 billion, his budget gap to be covered, of course, which he later revised down to $5.4 billion this year. Yeah. So he wants this pied-à-terre tax. That's how you say it in French. And he wants to yield some $500 million for the Big Apple's budget, which I now call the Big Orange. That's what it is under Mamdani. And of course, you know, the Blasios of the world, all the communists. That's what it becomes. But now the Democratic City Comptroller, Mark Levine's office, has said that the real figure would be closer to about $340 to $380 million. That could diminish over time. Not too bad, right, folks? Not too bad. Now, unsurprisingly, the colossal database of names and addresses included a lot of A-list New Yorkers. Oh. You have to have all the people that really would support him. Director Woody Allen, Vogue editor, and Wintour, actress Cynthia Nixon. Remember her? She was on that stupid show, what was it, Sex and the City? That nobody gives a damn about. She was all about Mamdani taking over. Let me tell you this. These are the people, these Mamdani supporters, you know, these uber leftists. They should be the ones that pay the higher taxes. Absolutely. Why not? Now, the Post counted over 960,000 residents and individuals listed as potentially in line to be hit with Mamdani's tax. Yeah. Even though just about 13,000 homes were supposedly to be targeted as the new levy, as he and Kathy Hochul initially sold it to the public. So in other words, you vote for Mamdani, you won't be taxed, don't worry about it. We're just going to tax the ultra-rich. Anyone that has over $100 million second home property. Do you want to see people leave your city in droves? Follow policies like this. Gavin Newsom in California, right? Him and the Sacramento Democrats, all head cases, every single one of them. I'm going to put now a wealth tax, right? It's not good enough that they have the highest state income tax in California for the highest earners. No, they've got to have a wealth tax, right? That any way they can tax you, they'll come up with an idea and they will stick to it. Believe you me. And that's why you see people leaving California, and then New York as quickly as they possibly can. That's all it is to it. So what he's going to do when he does this, and believe you me, he will do this, anyone with a multi-million-dollar vacation home will probably leave. I would have to say, why would you want to pay this, right? If you're a dunce like Woody Allen, you stay there. Well, okay, stay there. By all means, stay there. But what he's going to do is he's going to draw out the highest earners from the city, ladies and gentlemen, and that means you reduce your tax base. Why live in New York City when you can go to the Hamptons or to Long Island or to Westchester, right? You can go where AOC used to live before she became a ardent communist, right? A girl from the Bronx, if you will. Yep. All this does is push more people out of New York City, unfortunately. Not that I would ever live in New York City, but I'm just saying it'll push people out of New York City. It'll push business out of New York City as well. So that's going to be a problem. And what ends up happening, ladies and gentlemen, is that it has to go back to somebody. He's got to pay for all these freebies somehow. And what is he going to do? He's going to bring it down. He's going to go from the millionaires and billionaires, as Bernie Sanders would say, and he's going to bring it down to the next group of people. That's what's going to happen. That's how you get to it. And that's what always happens. That's the way it's got to go. All right. So there's that. There's Mamdani. There's his failing policy just blowing up right in front of his face. If you can, get the hell out of New York City as quickly as possible. One thing I do want to talk about today before we end today's show, folks, this is very, very crucial. This comes as somewhat good news to most people. They feel that Trump is delivering on his border of peace. And it says here that Hamas has confirmed on Friday that it will disarm. Oh, okay. This is amazing to me. Now, this is a potential breakthrough for ending the war in Gaza, which is interesting to me because I thought the war was already over. I thought, ladies and gentlemen, if I'm not mistaken, the end of 2025 in November, it could have been the end of October too, I forget. But I thought that the Israelis signed a ceasefire with the Gazans, the Hamas, if you will. I thought that's what happened. I thought that the Israelis were supposed to move out. There was supposed to be a board of peace that was overseeing the transition of reconstruction inside of Gaza, which 85% of it lie in ruins. I guess Hamas is in every single building inside of Gaza, really, essentially. Even though we continue to see bombing every single day, we see that Israel has gone beyond the yellow line, the line they're supposed to be beyond. And right now, somehow, this is amazing to me, they control about 70% of Gaza, while they continue to attack it during a ceasefire, which isn't a shock because they're supposed to be in a ceasefire with Lebanon right now, and they continue to attack inside of Lebanon. Again, not a shock. Netanyahu never honors any ceasefire. So let me ask you this. Why would all of a sudden, again, amid these bombings inside of Gaza, why would Hamas all of a sudden go on and confirm to President Trump that, yes, they will disarm? When we know that President Trump, never in his life, has reeled back in Netanyahu. There's not supposed to be Jewish settlers in the West Bank taking homes. Trump said that they won't do that. They're doing it right now. There's supposed to be a ceasefire in Gaza. Trump allegedly signed on to that, right? Yet there's still fighting going on. There's still people getting killed every single day. I watched a tent being bombed the other day, too. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess Hamas was hiding under the tent. That's the notion of what is sold to us in the news media. That has been very quiet about the number of deaths that has been continuing to trickle up ever since this ceasefire began last year. So, do I think Hamas is going to give up their arms all of a sudden? I don't think so. I really don't believe they will do that. That's going to be suicide for them, because then the alternative is going to be you have an armed IDF that is continuing to kill them every single day. And you have Israeli Likudniks, for instance, the Ben-Gavirs of the world, the Smotriches of the world, the Danny Danons of the world, the Israel Katz of the world, going out and saying the quiet part out loud that all of Gaza will become Jewish. How can that happen? Are they going to have forced conversions? Or are they going to have people leave Gaza so they can take the land? I think that's probably the latter. And what happens if you have people that refuse to leave? that say, no, this is my home. I'm going to stay here no matter what. What happens to those people? Well, they're probably going to be killed. And I don't say this to you, ladies and gentlemen, to put you against anyone who is Jewish. Don't misunderstand me. I'm talking specifically about the government right now. This is what government officials are saying. And if you don't believe me, you can go listen to Smotrich and Ben-Gvir in their own words. This is what they are saying. Ben-Gvir marched into the Al-Aqsa Mosque earlier this week in the West Bank. There are Jewish settlers that we all pay for, by the way. Did you know that, by the way? We pay for every single Jewish settler in the West Bank. We pay for their food, their housing, anything they need. We pay for that. They essentially live on welfare. You and I pay for that. Did you know that? Well, now you do. Just thought I'd share that with you, of course. But nothing is stopping them in the West Bank. It's completely chaotic. It's a war zone, essentially. And the war has just been declared on the Palestinians that live in the West Bank. That's what it comes down to. And we're seeing things only heat up in both Gaza and the West Bank, and of course in Lebanon. Netanyahu has refused to leave Lebanon as well, which makes any type of deal with the United States and Iran completely impossible, because Mojtaba Khamenei has come out and said any type of agreement we have to have up front that Israel leaves Lebanon. And if I were him, I would say also Gaza and parts of the West Bank, where they're, again, attacking and killing Arab Palestinians. That would be me. That would be how I would go about it. But I can't see this working out. Now, I have been able to confirm, though, that, yes, indeed, the senior Hamas official, Bassem Naim, had confirmed on a post on X that they would agree to the deal following a fierce negotiation battle. He added that the ball is now in Israel's court to fulfill its obligations according to the agreement. Well, they're not going to agree to it. And even if they do agree to it, they're going to stay in Gaza. They're going to keep attacking people. They're going to continue to bomb. So are you really going to give up your one little piece of leverage, you having some sort of weaponry to defend yourself? Is that what you're going to do? Something tells me it probably will not happen, unfortunately. So I think this is more, again, smoke and mirrors. I think this is just something to put something positive in the media, but I don't see this happening in any real sense, because what are you going to do then? You're either going to leave or you're going to be killed. One or the other. Take your pick. Can't see that happening. I really don't. And by the way, I saw this in the Jerusalem Post as well. This had to do with Netanyahu. It says here, Israel is demanding the complete disarmament of Hamas, including the removal of weapons, all weapons, from the Gaza Strip, and the full demilitarization of Gaza as a precondition for any withdrawal process to happen. I don't see it happening. I really don't. I really, again, is Trump going to hold him in line? Tell him he's got to get out of Gaza? Not going to happen. Simply just will not happen, folks. All right, let me just go over this really quickly. I was going to go over another article about what's taking place in Iran. This comes from Just the News. It says here, following Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard missile attacks on U.S. bases in Kuwait and Jordan, President Donald Trump is now signaling the readiness for a full-scale military action that could shatter the cycle of the tit-for-tat exchanges and accelerate an end to the conflict, opening the door to a full-on revolution. I gotta laugh, for the Persian nation. He said, we're going to beat the blanking blank out of them. I'll leave you to your own imagination to fill it in. We'll be hitting them hard. They're going to get a beating. That's what he said on Wednesday. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not going to work again. I was going to play you a clip from General Keane, of course, about how they can bomb the railways and the ways in which they can transport their goods from Iran to the Belt and Road Initiative into, of course, China and Pakistan and India and what have you. This is simply not going to work. We're going to see this amplified this weekend, I believe, right after the markets close. I do believe this will happen. We heard CENTCOM Admiral Bradley come out and say that they have a 10 to 14-day plan to work. Not going to work. I got to run, folks. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing the show. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you back here on Monday as always. Until then, be good. Stay busy. God bless.